law is a system that regulates and ensures that individuals or community adhere to rules and regulations of the state. And the state is there to enforce law through one collective legislator or single legislator. That's through group of people, government by other person. We also have the parental principle that law is used to prohibit self-harm to oneself, is there to prohibit abuse of children and disadvantaged persons. The morality principle explains that law is there to protect people from being harmed by other persons. Donation principle explains that government makes some laws to grant some goods and services to some citizens, to some persons, group, or organization. This makes and creates unfair and undue benefit for these citizens. That is, the government can grant an individual or group of people people power to some and also to increase its power for its own sake. The law can be dangerous for democracy if wrongly applied. For example, when there is prohibition of criticism from the people or opposition, so law can be dangerous at times and it can be wrongly applied. Now let's look at the sources of law. We have the custom, we have the religion, the judiciary system, the legislator. All these are the sources of law. Sources of law are the origins of law, and they are also the binding principles that enable any state to govern its territory. Now, the passive antithesis of a source of law may rely on a choice of jurisprudential analysis. That is, the source of law can be custom, it can be religion, it can be judicial system, it can be legislature. Now, the custom source of law has been there for over decades and centuries. The principle of law here have been derived from custom, the divine right of kings, queen, the natural and legal rights, the human right of every individual, the civil rights of an individual, and also the common law. They are early written unwritten sources of law. There are some laws that are not written. You understand? Like beliefs of people. There are some laws that every individual um knows about. Now, the custom law, it has been there for ages. They are the divine right of kings, of queens, and all that. Now, the kings have a level of power he exercise over its citizens, over every individual within his kingdom. You understand? There are also legal rights, human rights, the civil rights of an individual. Now let's go to religion law. There are common law and other forms of religious law from the basis Quran. All these are religion law. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not, they are religion's law. Now, legislature, that's the legislation, the rules and regulations, they are formed from tangible source which are codified and enforceable. There are sources of law from different legal systems. That's the civil law system, the common law system, which are under the custom law. We also have the state law or written constitution. We have the international law. Now, over some decades and centuries, the custom law has preceded, it has existed for a long period of time. Now, under the custom law, we have the civil law, which is the sole source of law, appropriate code, such as the civil code or the criminal code. Now, the civil law is the citizen of any nation or of any country, is enforced in order to guide every individual
Please be patient, the lecturer will join you.
other law, the common law system, the state law or written constitution, and the international law. Now, from the civil law, we hold or the criminal code of law. We also have from the common law, which civil law, so the common law into the civil law and vice versa. We have the state or the written constitution. While a written constitution may seem to be the primary or the prime source of law, the state legislation may amend its constitution provided certain rules are followed. Lastly, we have the international law, is announced later by the national parliament. Now, this international law is between two or more nations, depending on the prevailing situation. Two countries can come together to create a certain law, and two or more countries can also do the same, and vice versa. And this decision is always decided by the national parliament for international law. Now, the sources of law in Nigeria, have explained it, which are from the custom, the religion, the judicial law system, and the legislature. Now we have the constitution that comes up with rules of law. We have the English law, we have the customary law, we have the Sharia law, which is the Islamic law. Now, the English law is derived from the colonial past with Britain. Now, we all know that Britain colonized, is part of the country that colonized Nigeria. Now, this English law came directly, or is being derived from their past, the Britain, which has to do with the common law, the code law, the criminal law. While the customary law is derived from indigenous traditional norms and practice, we have the traditional laws from each tradition, each religion, or each area. We have the Yorubas, the Igbos, the Hausas, and some minor languages. Now, each of these have their own rules and regulations. They have their own laws that guides their citizens right from the onset. So lastly, we have the Sharia law, which is used in some states in the northern region. This is a judicial branch with the Supreme Court regarded as the highest court of the land. Now, this Sharia law is always found in the northern areas of Nigeria. Now, let's look at crimes. What are crimes? Any unlawful act punishable by the state or the authority is called crime. Now, the most popular view is that crime is a category created by law. You understand? In other words, sometimes something is a crime if declared as such by the relevant and applicable law. One proposed definition is that a crime or offense is an act harmful not only to some individuals, but also to a community, society, or the state. Such acts are forbidden and punishable by law. Any act that is forbidden can be punishable by law. You understand? Now, a criminal act is a criminal or a crime, is found from the custom law, which looks at the criminal code and all that. Now, precisely, a criminal offense can be defined by criminal law of each country. It differs from each other, from one country to the other. Any act that is termed crime or criminal, unlawful, has become a criminal, a crime, and is unlawful to the society. Now, the state has the power to severely arrest or restrict one's liberty, an individual liberty, for committing a crime. In modern society, there are procedures to which investigations and trials must adhere. If found guilty, an offender may be sentenced to a form of reparation, such as a community sentence, or depending on the nature of their offense to undergo imprisonment, life imprisonment, or in some jurisdictions. So all these are crimes. We have different forms of crime. We have the business crime, the computer crime. We also have other forms of crime. Now let's look at the business crime. The business crimes, they are financial or economical or corporate crime. They usually involve fraud and theft that is often carried out by sophisticated means. The result is usually economic loss for businesses, investors, stakeholders, and those affected by the actions of the perpetrator. Now, let's look at examples of business crimes: making false statements, defraudment, tax evasion, wired fraud, cheating, impersonation, prevention of competitions, perjury and conspiracy. All these are examples of business crime. We have the computer crime, which is an act performed by a knowledgeable computer user, sometimes refers to as an hacker, that illegally browse or steals a company's or individual's private information. In some cases, this person or group of individuals may be malicious and destroy or otherwise corrupt the computer or data files. Now, we have different type of hackers nowadays. Some will hack through your Facebook account. They can hack your WhatsApp or your other social platforms. Now, let's look at computer crimes and how it affects businesses. The first is malware, which is a code with malicious intent that typically steals data or destroys something on the computer. It can be sent, it is an all-encompassing term for a variety of cyber threats, including trojans, viruses, and worms. Now, this is introduced to a system through email attachment, software downloads, or operating system vulnerabilities. Now, the essence of this is to destroy some certain forms of data's information on one's email. This is sent through email and is there to affect the system. If you download any files that has all these viruses, it will make your computer system to display wrongly. We have phishing, which is posting as a request for data from a trusted third party. Phishing attacks are sent via email to ask users to click on a link and enter their personal data. To be safe, always received from that company. Now, an individual can send a link to a criminal, or a computer criminal can send an email to any individual requesting for a code. Now, once this code is being sent, they will use it to activate or transfer your money or do any other criminal act. So it is advisable for you to always cross-check. If you have been sent a message titled First Bank, make sure you go through their contact online, and you can put a call through them to ensure that they are not the ones sending you such request. We have malvertising, which is a way to compromise your system with malicious codes that is downloaded to your system when you click on the affected advert. So once a user clicks on one of these ads, some type of malware will be downloaded. So that's viruses and worms will be downloaded. So any website or web publisher can be subjected to malvertising and may don't even know they have been compromised. So the fourth one is denial of service, DOS attack. These attacks, this involves the attacker using multiple computers to send the traffic or data that will overload the system. In many instances, a person may not even realize that his or her computer has been hijacked and is contributing to the DOS attack. So it always focuses on disrupting the services to a network, and the best way to prevent any additional breach is to keep your system as secure as possible with regular software updates, online security monitoring, and monitoring your data flow to identify unusual or threatening spikes in traffic before they become a problem. Lastly, we have the ROG software. The designer make pop-ups. We know what pop-ups is when you are trying to browse a site and so many things are coming up, popping on your system, asking you to visit this site or the other site. Now, the designer make pop-ups windows and alerts that look legitimate. So these alerts advise the user to download security software, agree to terms, or update their current system in an effort to stay protected. By clicking yes to any of these scenarios, the right software is downloaded to the user's computer. So for prevention, have a working firewall in your office that protects you and your employees from these types of attacks. So it is also a good idea to install a trusted antivirus or anti-spyware software that can detect threats like ROG software. So these are criminal laws and types of crimes. We've explained business crimes and also computer crimes. We know what making false statements is in terms of business crime, defraudment, wired fund, when someone transfer wipe out your account. You understand? There are some certain type of person criminals that will just put a call through you that we are from social bank, we are from your bank, I'm a customer care from your bank. We are trying to check your bank. There are different methods they can come in. They can come in different but the moment they ask you to type in your ATM pin code, you should know that they are 419. And your bank cannot call you unnecessarily like that. They can only request you to come to the bank and make some certain clarifications of any arising issue. So let's go to TWAT. 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 They are civil wrongs. They are civil wrongs to have acted tortiously. One must have breached a duty to another person or infringe some pre-existing legal rights. So if any individuals has wrongfully harm or cause an harm to an individual, to a fellow person, this person has committed a civil wrong. So a simple example might be accidentally hitting someone with a cricket ball. That's a civil wrong. Under the law of negligence, the most common form of tort is the injured party could potentially claim compensation for their injuries from the party responsible for this. So the principles of negligence, they are illustrated by below. Now, the person who commit the act is called a tortfeasor. So although crimes may be tort, the cause of legal action is not necessarily a crime. as the harm may be due to negligence which does not amount to criminal negligence. So in any of this form of negligence, the affected party can decide to claim compensation for their injuries from the party responsible for the injury. Now, the victim of the harm can recover their loss as damages in a lawsuit. In order to prevail, the plaintiff in the lawsuit, commonly referred to as the injured party, must show that the actions or lack of actions was the legally recognized cause of the harm. So the equivalent of tort in civil law jurisdiction is the delict. Now, the legal injury are not limited to physical injuries and may include emotional, economical, or reputational injuries, as well as violations of privacy, property, or constitutional rights. Tort comprises such varied topics as automobile accident, false imprisonment, defamation, product liability, copyright infringement, and environmental pollution. All these are the various topics that tort um, comprises of. Now, automobile accidents can happen either as a form of negligence, but it does not amount to criminal negligence. Now, the affected party can decide to claim compensation in the court of law, which I believe it can be granted. And we also have the copyright infringement, the false imprisonment, defamation, product liability. All these can be settled at the court of law. Now, the tort law is different from criminal law. Tort may result from negligence as well as intentional or criminal actions. Two, tort lawsuits have a lower burden of proof, such as preponderance of evidence rather than beyond a reasonable doubt. You understand? Now, when we look at tort, like in terms of automobile accidents, it might be negligence. You understand? It might also be intentional. But under tort, it cannot be proven beyond doubt that it is negligent or it is intentional. So the burden of proof is always it's very low compared to criminal law. In a criminal law, it is very explicit and it can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Now let's look at the basis for intentional and negligent tort liability. Law of dangerous or where he believes that injuries are substantially certain to result from the using of the product, he may be liable for battery to any plaintiff injury by the product. Now, this is intentional tort. When an individual sells a product that he or she knows that it can cause harm to other person. You understand? When you sell an expired goods, when you sell any other services that you know it can cause harm, you understand, to other party, it is intentional tort. And negligence has to do with when an individual accidentally cause an harm to a fellow person, individual. You understand? The general rule regarding these negligence cases is that if it is reasonably foreseeable that a product will create a risk of death or injury to the plaintiff, that's the injured person, if the product is not carefully made or supplied, the manufacturer and supplier have a duty to carefully manufacture and supply the product. This duty is owed to any foreseeable user of the product. we are going to round up the class here, and I will share the assignment. You send it to the email address below. You send it to it before the next class. I will not entertain any other assignment after the next class. You send it to the email address before the next class. Thank you for your time. Mr. Yamin, please give us a minute. Let them screenshot the assignments. Thank you for your time. Do have a lovely day.